All right, so in this episode, we just wanted to talk about one thing that we know every single couple has to deal with, and we apologize for missing last week, is overcoming obstacles, trials, tribulations in our marriage, in your life, unforeseen, occurrences, things that just happen in your life that you didn't expect. We know that this is going to happen to everybody, sickness and death and all these other crazy things that nobody ever wants to talk about. But the reality is, obviously these type of things are happening every single day, of every hour, of every minute, to every family across the world. And in our own personal life, we've been together for almost 2 years, married almost 2 years. And even over the course of just those 2 years, we've gone through so much together. I know it was just 6 months after we got married. Our marriage was off to a good start. We were traveling, we were doing things, and it was fun, it was nice. Our marriage wasn't there. We already spoke about that in another video. But one of the things that hit us was me losing my mother. Waking up at 3 a.m. to my sister calling me saying, mom's dead, she's gone. And I'm like, no, don't say it like that. What are you saying? No. That's not true. And
it was such a terrible situation too, because I was really sick coming out of the hospital, and it was 3 a.m. and he thought his sister's just acting up. It was one of those days.
Right.
And she was calling him like crazy, and I'm like, answer. He's like, no, she's probably just going through one of those days. And then she called me, and I'm like, okay, you need to answer. It might be an emergency. And then he answered half asleep, and she was like, Mom, I'm sorry, Mom is dead, she's not breathing. And he's like, no. It was like, I still think about that day in my head, just because I think if it were me, how would I react, and the way that she said it, and hearing it at 3 a.m., you think you're dreaming. It's like, somebody pinch me, because I know this is not true. I'm having a nightmare. And the first thing I did immediately was text my sister and my mother, and they were all here. The elders in the congregation, one of them showed up at 4 a.m. Sisters were coming up all day. People were visiting him, but it was bad, because our marriage, like we said, it was us living together for the first time we were married, and our communication wasn't the best when we talked about it in the other video. And it was hard for me too, because I didn't know what to say. You don't know what to say when somebody loses their mother and you haven't lost your mother in your life. It's something to say. You can't say, oh, I understand what you're feeling. No, you could just cry with them or be there for them, but you really can't say anything to heal that,
Right.
And we would have arguments, because he was going through, he was grieving, so he was going through his emotional, he was really emotional, and he didn't want to show it. So we would have arguments, and I would just have to shut it. I couldn't say anything, even though I was angry in the moment, and I would just be like, okay, he's going through what he's going through, so I can't say anything. So it was really difficult. We were on a 6 month of marriage, and it was just a really, really difficult time. I mean, we were able to overcome that.
And one of the things that we did in order to overcome, this first obstacle, because in our life, even over the course of the past 2 years, she's lost her grandmother. We've lost, different people in our family. We've gone through, financial troubles. There's so many things that we've gone through in the past 2 years that, I think it was always, life happening for us. Our marriage is so beautiful. It's so strong today, to the point where we never fight. We have nothing to complain about. We're so grateful. And, I've never been happier in my life. She's never been happy in her life. But the question is, how do we get from fighting every day, going through all of these, me losing my mother, like deaths in the family, financial troubles, to not having any of those troubles, and now we're doing very well. Of course, life isn't perfect, but we've never been happier. So one of the things that we implemented, from the second I lost my mother was, all right, well, let's just, her thing was, let me show him that I'm there for him, and let me be a good supporter to him. And her whole family was a huge supporter to me. But I told myself, hey, I have to be a supporter to my wife. I have to set the example of showing my wife, when she loses her mother, this is how you can react. You can be strong the same way I am. You can live your life the same way I do. Just because you lose somebody in death doesn't mean that you have to be sad and depressed every day of every moment of every year for the rest of your life, as I know some people are. The next week I was up and smiling. That didn't mean that I didn't have bad days, and certain things reminded me of my mom, but for the most part, I was, back to my happy self, because I wasn't gonna live in a dark place. The darkness can keep you there if you let it. But if you want to live a happy, beautiful life, you have to know when it's time to break out of that. And after a week, after a couple days, being sad and depressed and crying and letting it out, my wife was a huge supporter to everything that I was going through. And because we had that, we started to have open communication, and because she was a huge supporter to me, it was something that allowed me to cope, something that allowed me to deal with that obstacle and that trial. So that was one of the biggest things that we've gone through in our marriage, me losing my mother. But because my wife was there for me, because she supported me, because she loved me, because her family was there for me, I was 100% able to get back to my regular, happy, joyful, funny, smiling self with no problem. So if your spouse is going through something extremely difficult, whether it's finances, sickness, health, they're losing a parent, a family member, a friend, one of the biggest things that you need to do for them is show them that you support them, show them that you love them, show them that you care for them, and don't try to talk down their throat. Oh no, it's gonna be fine. This is what you need to do. Like, don't do none of that. Just be an open ear.
Left them alone.
Yep.
Not a long time, but I would just let him be, because it was hard for me not to see him talk. He's always talking 24/7. You guys know him. He loves to talk.
Right.
So not seeing him talk was really hard for me. So I just gave him his space, and it also made me communicate more with him openly.
Right.
Be more sincere with him.
100%.
And that pushed me to do it, because I was 100%. If I don't do it, he's not gonna do it. He's going through what he's going through, so
right.
I have to communicate with him. So I got that out of that. I communicated
right.
better with him, and
right.
and that made our relationship grow even more.
Right. And if you are going through something difficult in your life, in your marriage, your spouse is sick, there's something that's going on, use that as a gift. Because without problems, we would never grow, right? And every problem is a gift, because it allows you to grow. And although my mother passing away was a horrible thing, in our life, in our marriage, that was a gift, because it allowed our marriage to grow. It allowed me to grow as a man, as a person. It allowed my wife to grow as a wife, as a supporter. See, if you're not going through anything difficult, how do you know that, your life is really as good as it can be? Because you don't know if you've even made it through difficult times. But see, we've made it through the toughest of toughest things, finances, a whole bunch of other stuff that, we'll talk more about in other videos. But we wanted to talk about this major thing that, catastrophic thing that happened in our marriage and my life, because it affected my wife. And if I let that affect me, if I was going to be sad and depressed and angry and mad, and I just justified and said, Monica, I just lost my mother, I have a reason to be angry, sad, mad, and for as long as I'd like to be, then that's going to affect my wife, and that's going to affect our marriage overall, and then we're never going to be happy. So if you have something going on in your life, in your marriage, sickness, death, finances, whatever it might be, change your perspective. Instead of looking at it as something that's so negative and dark, look at it as a gift, because it's going to allow you to grow, not just personally, but as a couple as well. And we know that for a fact, because that's exactly what took place in our marriage. And one of the reasons why we're just so strong and so happy today, because we've made it through the darkest of darkest times. So in another video, we'll talk about finances. Another video, we'll talk about, relationships with people in the family, and a bunch of other obstacles that we've had to overcome to get to where we are today. But we hope just this little quick video was and could be a huge help to you, your spouse, and your family as well. Well, we thank you so much for watching. Hopefully we're able to inspire you, and if you implement some of these things, we know for a fact you'll be able to turn at least some of your problems around. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.